Hi, everybody, and welcome to the LA Strong Return and Rebuild series of webinars or community updates hosted by Mayor Karen Bass and Councilmember Tracy Park. We have a great community briefing scheduled today, but before we dive into the content, we'll go ahead and go over some logistics. First off, if you need any closed captioning or American Sign Language, we do have those options for you. Just click the globe at the bottom of your screen. You can select American Sign Language, or you can click on the link provided in your chat for closed captioning. After a brief delay, once you click on that link, you'll be able to see the closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. We also record each of these webinars and we make them available at Mayor Karen Bass's YouTube page. Please feel free to use the QR code on your screen or go to YouTube and type in Mayor Karen Bass and you'll be able to find all of the videos from tonight as well as the previous Tuesdays and Thursdays webinars that we posted before. Tonight, we will provide an overview of the extension on the right of entry forms or opt-out forms provided by FEMA's Regional Administrator, Bob Fenton. Following that, we will discuss a little bit about the expansion of scope for the debris removal program provided by the Army Corps of Engineers. Then we will go over a right of entry update from the County Public Works Department. And then we have the California Department of Insurance with us tonight to provide some useful updates about some expansion of some of the coverage for the FAIR Plan and other important resources. And then we have a series of quick announcements after that. Before we get into all of these topics, we have greetings and opening remarks by our very own Mayor, Mayor Karen Bass.
Hello, everyone. I hope that everyone had a decent, relaxing weekend. And I will tell you that the councilwoman and I were very happy to learn that on Friday, FEMA extended the deadline to April 15th. The other thing that I'm happy to announce too is that I think there's about 400 people now who have not opted in or opted out. That's a lot lower than it was a week or so ago. And to me, it's just an example of the level of organization that I know exists in the Palisades. So when I was there last week and met with the neighborhood groups to see how well people were organized, and we put out a call and a plea to please contact your neighbors so they would either opt in or opt out, everyone acted. So only 400 more to go. And I was just also blown away to learn that nearly 1,000 lots have already been cleared through phase 1 and phase 2. And that means they can be ready to rebuild. And it's my understanding, Councilwoman, I don't know if you know this, but that the library is underway. I think that they are removing the debris from the library. So I'm very excited that we could think about and begin to envision what a temporary library would look there. And I think that's within reach. I feel like that's closer than we imagined. And so again, the more we can get these numbers down in terms of from 400, because one thing we don't want to have happen is after April 15th, we don't want to have a number of lots where we don't know what they're going to do and have a ton of debris there. That will be upsetting to everyone. So I know also another announcement from FEMA is that the cleanup effort will now include condos and townhomes. That's a big deal because that was not supposed to be included. And so the city is going to work with the county and the state to submit requests to FEMA to include additional properties. And so you'll hear about that a little while later. So I do want to encourage those almost 1,000 people. If you haven't already, visit our one-stop rebuilding center because we want you all to move forward with the permitting and the planning process. We have heard of people who've had some challenges along the way. I've heard of people that were told they were going to have to pay exorbitant fees. And then when they brought it to our attention, we were able to deal with it because we don't want people now, after having lost your property through no fault of your own, to then have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to rebuild. It's not like people are remodeling. This was a disaster. This was an act of God. And so we want people to be able to afford to rebuild as fast as possible. So with that, let me pass the baton over to your very able Councilwoman, Tracy Park.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everyone. I don't want to take up too much time tonight because I know we have some really important updates from the Army Corps and FEMA about the expanded scope of debris removal, and I want to leave time for Q&A with the Army Corps. But I really wanted to take a moment and thank the governor's office and LA County and the mayor and her team for all of the collaboration on the issue about expanding the properties that could qualify for the Army Corps program. We still have some work to do on a case-by-case basis to advocate for the inclusion of more and more properties, but we are going to keep at it. And I will tell you, I was up in the Palisades on Friday night. I was up there again yesterday, and watching the scale of the work unfolding on a day-to-day basis is really, really remarkable. I just want to echo the mayor's sentiments. Everybody, please get those right of entry forms in. We have a tiny little bit more elbow room, but it is really important to either opt in or opt out. That's also really important information for us to know as we are working on the planning for the logistics and the operations, the movement of vehicles and materials and individuals through the area. That really helps us identify some of the needs, the areas for prioritization, and some anticipated challenges that we will have there. So that's all I want to say tonight, guys. Get those right of entry forms in. Really, really important that we have that clarity. With that, I will pass it back to the mayor and her team. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, council member. And up next, we have our very own FEMA Regional Administrator, Bob Fenton.
Well, good afternoon, and I just want to thank Mayor Bass and Councilwoman Parks for the partnership. FEMA has been focused on not only expanding our ability to help as many people as we can with regard to debris removal, but also working with the Corps and EPA to ensure that we remove the debris as quick as we can. And one of the key things that we recently were able to do was extend the timeline for submitting rights of entry to April 15th of 2025. Again, these are for residents that have destroyed homes from the fire. If your home is standing, you do not need to apply. This program doesn't apply to you if your home is standing. So this is really for individuals with destroyed homes from the fire. Submit the right of entry form will allow you to participate in the structural debris removal really at no cost. We are not able to duplicate other forms of funding. So if you do have insurance and it's specific to debris, the county will work with you on that. And if there is funding for that line item that's not spent on additional work that needs to be done after the Corps, that residual amount may have to be provided to the county to offset any of the costs that we provided for the Corps to do debris removal. All property owners should submit a right of entry or opt out for the program, so we have a good understanding of who is in the program and who doesn't want to participate and remove debris on your own, because we still want to make sure that we've done phase one for you, and we do have a couple of deferred properties left to complete phase one on. And you can do that online. The website is at the bottom here at recovery.lacounty.gov/debris-removal, or phone LA County's 1-800 number there, 844-347-3332. If you go to the next slide, I want to talk about expanded eligibility for multi-family property owners. Our public assistance program that we fund most states and local governments is usually focused primarily on public entities, your schools, the library, the mayor just talked about. We were able to expand that to single family homes early on in this event, and now have expanded it to include owner occupied multifamily residential properties. We believe that should help with a significant number of properties that were condominiums owned by individuals, duplexes where they shared walls, or other residential commercial properties. We typically look at all these as commercial, but we're able to categorize them as residential as long as they were for residential purposes. Each affected owner must submit a right of entry within that complex. And if the property is part of a HOA, the HOA must also submit one. Rental only properties, however, remain at this point ineligible, and landlords must use their private insurance for debris removal. Generally, commercial properties were unable to provide assistance in debris removal because there's other federal programs that provide that assistance, such as SBA, and many of the commercial properties are covered by insurance. There may be certain instances where we may be able to help certain commercial properties, and we're working very closely with the state, the county, and the city to look at those opportunities and to assess those further to make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll introduce our next speaker from the LA County Public Works Department, Emiko Thompson.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. There's very good progress being made on the ROEs. To date, over 9,800 ROEs have been received, of which about 5,100 are from the Palisades fire impacted areas. And more than 7,700 ROEs have been transmitted to the Army Corps. And to date, the total number of parcels that have not yet opted in or out is 731, which is a drastic reduction in the number of non-responsive parcels since last week. So we're very excited about that. Of those who haven't yet responded, 405 parcels are in the city of LA. So overall, we're seeing a very good trend, and we thank you all for your part in moving the process forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have an update from the California Department of Insurance by Rob.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. So at the Department of Insurance, as we continue to implement reforms to improve insurance accessibility, the commissioner last Friday approved an increase to the coverage limit for the FAIR Plan commercial properties. So this is aimed at increasing insurance access for commercial policies, including HOAs, condos, affordable housing, builders, farmers, and other businesses where the FAIR Plan previously those policy limits were insufficient. So now with this approval, the FAIR Plan can now offer increased coverage, increasing their coverage limit from 20 million per location to 20 million per structure, up to 100 million total per location. This should help many of the HOAs out there who have had trouble getting insured or finding wildfire insurance. Now, although this action was approved by the commissioner last Friday, the FAIR Plan has up to 120 days from the March 28th approval date to make these limits available to eligible applicants. And all of this is part of our sustainable insurance strategy, which is part of the regulatory reforms that we continue to help improve, that we're looking to continue to help improve California's insurance markets. And, you know, we understand that while there's currently an insurance moratorium on cancellations and non-renewal in the affected areas and adjacent areas, when that much moratorium lifts and when homes are rebuilt, many homeowners are going to continue needing expanded insurance options, and we want to continue providing updates or any changes and actions that the department takes. Now, on the next slide, when we're attending these webinars, you know, we want to provide as much information as possible in response to your question with as much information as possible. But in most cases, the best way for us to help you out is by having us take a look at your insurance policy and starting what's called the request for assistance process. You can do that by calling us at 1-800-927-4357. You could visit us in person at either Disaster Recovery Center, whether it's on Pico or in the Altadena area, or you can visit insurance.ca.gov/consumer help and start the request for assistance process online. And on the next slide, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up on a couple events that are occurring in town halls by the Department of Insurance. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, at Malibu City Hall, we are hosting an insurance town hall, which is open to the public, by the way, not just Malibu, not just to the city of Malibu, but all residents, including those in the Palisades, are welcome to attend. There's also a virtual option. It'll be streamed online. We will be presenting updates on from the California Department of Insurance, fraud prevention, tips for homeowners, along with we also have a representative from the Fair Plan providing a presentation. We'll be also there able to answer any questions you might have. And on the 22nd, a few weeks from now, the insurance commissioner is hosting a virtual town hall focusing on insurance claims and some of the issues we've been seeing over the past few months. You can register for that at the QR code listed there, or go to QR code/CDI 0422. Again, I encourage everyone to register and attend and listen in on these webinars or town halls. And hopefully we can get some of your questions answered there as well.
Thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciate you participating here with us and the overall partnership with the Department of Insurance. A couple of other updates, as you see here at recovery.lacity.gov, we do have some new resources and a rebranded website. Hopefully, we'll make it easier for everybody to find resources from the city, the county, the state, and the federal government all in one place, specifically for Palisades and city residents. So again, please check out the new website at recovery.lacity.gov, where you can find access to resources, links to information, links to these webinars, and so forth. We hope that that makes things easier for you. I know that many people have been asking for a one-stop shop online, and we hope that this will provide you with an easier way to navigate the various resources out there. Next slide. Also, this coming Thursday, April 3rd, we have a webinar being hosted by Assembly member Jackie Irwin. She is bringing the Contractor State Licensing Board to a webinar really designed to help you with the rebuilding process. They will review hiring and working with licensed contractors, understanding contracts, change orders and protections, as well as preventing fraud and avoiding project delays. Again, this is Thursday, April 3rd from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. That's just in 2 days from now. And you can scan the QR code or click on the link in the chat to be able to RSVP for that webinar. Next slide. Also, a friendly reminder that the disaster recovery centers are still open. The closest one to the Palisades is the UCLA Research Park location on Pico and Westwood. We have plenty of parking available, as well as over 70 agencies from city, county, state, and federal agencies, as well as nonprofits, providing information and tangible resources for you. Even if you have been there multiple times, you're welcome to come on back. We also distribute passes, access passes to residents as well as contractors at this location in the parking garage. If you have questions about your FEMA application, your SBA application, debris removal, housing resources, CalFresh, you can come to the Disaster Recovery Center and access those resources and information on site. Next slide. And also, as a reminder, we do have our one-stop shop rebuilding center that is also open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sawtelle, 1828 Sawtelle Boulevard. This is where you can go and talk to people about submitting a plan, getting your old plans from your prior build, or when you purchased the house, or even when the house was originally built, your architectural designs and so forth. There are over 10 city departments available to you to talk about the rebuilding process and help you through that streamlined process as well. With that, we're going to go ahead and turn to our open Q&A session, and we'll go ahead and start with some questions regarding the debris removal process. So we do have a question from Beth Galanti. Beth is saying, our house is standing but damaged in the backyard. We also need debris removal and some structural removal in the yard. We need help as well, and can you help us? So Emiko from LA County Public Works, can you come on and share a little bit more about the parameters around who is eligible and who is ineligible to submit an ROE for private property debris removal with the Army Corps?
Yes, of course. So those who are eligible are property owners who have had structures that are damaged, that are greater in size, greater than 120 square feet in size. So if you've had damage or no damage, but your damage is less than 120 square feet, then you don't actually qualify for the government-run program. However, if you do have maybe some burnt structures like fences or trees, bushes that you need to get rid of, you can still take it to any Class 3 landfill that has a liner and a leachate collection system. There's a list provided on the recovery.lacounty.gov website. I highly encourage anybody who doesn't qualify but need to take material to the landfill to call the landfill in advance, because they may have restrictions as well as needs for certain types of documentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And a question for our regional administrator, Bob Fenton. We've heard a number of questions from multifamily property owners, particularly apartment building owners. And they're wondering, what do they have to do to become eligible? Could you walk us through that process, or your analysis for an apartment building owner, separate from condos, which we know are now included? For the apartment owner, a building owner out there, what is your advice or insight in terms of what they should expect moving?
Yeah, so I would first start off, if the property owner has the capability, has received insurance, if they could go ahead and do the debris removal on their own, they should start that process. If they have issues that prevent them from doing that, if there's the city or the county sees immediate threats of public health or safety, let's say there's a potential for that to impact the greater public. If there's also issues with potential insurance coverage, if there's maybe greater economic impacts to the community, maybe it was provided a critical service to the community that has to replace. If there's also other barriers to that commercial entity being able to complete debris removal on their own, those are reasons that they should come to the county, put a right of entry in, and submit that. There'll be a lot of information that needs to be applied. We will look at those on a case-by-case basis in those categories I just talked about, and probably send someone out to talk to the owner and get more information, and then make a decision on whether we can include that in our program or not.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's very, very helpful. Okay, we have another question from Jerry Robinson. Jerry is asking a question, I believe, specifically for the county Department of Public Works. Jerry is saying that their family filled out the ROE form about 6 weeks ago, but they haven't received the DocuSign email to complete the process. They've called the hotline, but they still haven't received that email yet. Emiko, how should they proceed, and what advice do you have for Jerry or anybody in a similar situation?
Thank you for the question, Jerry. Yeah, the DocuSign can be very tricky because the name on your ID needs to match exactly with the ROE. So let's see, probably the best way to go about it is contact or send an email rather to ROE@lacounty.gov. Or you can contact the debris removal hotline, and we'll go ahead and put that information in the chat as well. And then we will be sure to look at it. You can also email me. My email is E like Echo, T like Tom, H like Hotel, O M like Mary, P, at dpw.lacounty.gov. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And another one, another question for you, Emiko, and we could certainly help to answer that here on the city side as well. But if you could start us off, that would be great. There's a question from Jacqueline. Jacqueline's asking, what happens to homes that were burned where owners do not sign the ROE or clean the debris from their homes with private contractors? What will happen, and are there any resources that could be made available to clear these lots?
Okay, I think I understand the question. This is for people that don't qualify for the government run. No, they do qualify, but they haven't opted in yet, and they haven't opted out yet. So there are a few of those left, and we really do want to encourage people to choose one way or the other, opt in or opt out. But after all efforts have been exhausted, and if there are still people out there that haven't made a choice, then there will be processes underway to abate the situation. Those processes are currently under development, but it really is in the community's best interest that everybody move along with cleanup one way or the other. So there should be more information forthcoming. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, we have about 400 properties left in the Palisades. We're going to be working together as a city and a county, and all the government agencies and nonprofits and block club leaders and block captains throughout the community to try to get as many of those 400 individual property owners to submit their right of entry form or their opt-out form by the deadline of April 15th. So we have very minimal number of properties that we will fall into that category, and more information to come. Yes, thank you. Okay, well, let me go ahead and transition to a question for the Army Corps of Engineers. This question is for Joanna Spock, or from Joanna Spock. Joanna's asking, there seem to be a lot of dump trucks going down Sunset Boulevard to get to the 405, which is creating a huge traffic jam in the afternoons, about 90 minutes to get to the 405. I was told that the debris trucks were supposed to use PCH to the 10 to the 405. I feel like I'm in a Saturday Night Live skit. So what's up with that? Are Army Corps trucks all going down PCH to the 10 to the 405? Or are any of the Army Corps trucks going up through Sunset to the 405?
Oh, I appreciate the question. Colonel Brian Saucer, commander of the emergency field office here in the Palisades. So essentially what we try to utilize the primary routes as much as possible, but it is an optimization problem. And we do have hundreds of trucks that need to move multiple directions. So the answer is all of the above. We do utilize PCH at a much higher percentage than a route like Sunset. Sunset gets a small minority of trucks that will utilize that during the day. If the optimization model is showing that they're going to have significant delays on some of the primary routes. And that's just to try to get 2 or 3 turns per truck to maximize the use of those trucks during daylight hours and during the opening hours for receiving facilities. So the answer is we do try to mitigate use of Sunset. We do try to maximize use and get to those primary routes as soon as possible, the 10, the 405, the 101. But in some cases, if the modeling is showing us that it's more efficient for a few of the trucks to move different directions, they will, if they're legally permissible roads, which they are. So I hope that answers the question. I know it's frustrating. We really have peak utilization here the next 2 months. I would say April and May are your 2 most decisive months for this entire operation. Just for folks to kind of give the kind of perspective on what's going on. Just looking at the LA numbers alone, looking at conservative estimates for some of those 400 undecided folks, even if we were to receive all of those for the city of Los Angeles, we would right now be at about 20% complete in terms of cleared houses. At the current rates that are going to increase in April and May, you're going to get an additional 25% and another additional 25% in April and in May. So your world is very different by the time you get to Memorial Day weekend, but that requires the utilization for the roads in order to optimize movements and get additional turns per truck. I do apologize. It will probably be stressful for a couple more months. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Saucer. We appreciate you being straightforward, that some trucks are going down Sunset. We appreciate that information. I will say that Joanna was also asking about how can we relieve some of the traffic on Sunset. Joanna, please know that our Department of Transportation does have white glove officers out in 4 locations on Sunset, attempting to help to make sure that the traffic is moving at peak hours in the morning and in the evening. And we'll continue to monitor. In fact, the city is planning to bring on some additional traffic mitigation experts to help deal with some of the traffic issues that we are seeing out on the road. So we appreciate the concern and appreciate you, Colonel Saucer, for sharing the context with us so that we could understand that why the traffic may be flowing in the directions that we're seeing, which is in all directions, really. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have another question, a series of questions, one from Sue Pasco. Sue is asking, when will the city waive all permit and building fees for Palisadians who want to rebuild? And a number of other constituents asked this question. I do want folks to know that Councilmember Tracy Park has led on a motion to City Council directing various departments to come back with the analysis needed in order to make that determination. So there is action happening. I know that it is not as fast as everybody would like, but we are addressing fees as we go. Mayor Karen Bass issued an executive order just recently to reduce the fees and keep fees in a contained manner, but it does require some legislative action. So we're going through that process right now, and we will have a more clear answer for folks as soon as that legislative process concludes in regards to fees. We appreciate the question. I know folks are eager to see that level of clarity, which, just to be honest, we do not have at this very moment. We will continue to do all that we can as quickly as we can for the clarity that you all need. All right, I see a number of questions for Rob from the Department of Insurance. Rob, if you wouldn't mind coming on and answering a couple of questions for us. The first one we have is from Bruce Green. Bruce is asking, is the insurance commissioner seeking to get State Farm to act more responsibly and allow personal property payments without inventories? I've heard this question before, actually on a webinar on Sunday as well, where individuals were sharing that inventorying a lifetime of personal effects is very difficult to go through everything that you've ever owned over the course of many decades. And this is very stressful and in many cases unrealistic. So is there anything that the insurance commissioner's office can do, or what has been the engagement and dialogue with State Farm in regards to that particular inventory requirement?
Sure. No, excellent question, Jenny. Yeah, you're right. This has come up a lot, especially since early January after the wildfires. And you're right. You know, the commissioner feels exactly the same, that it's just not right to ask those who have just lost everything to go back and itemize everything that they lost with documentation in order to get the contents coverage that they've rightfully paid for. Now, you know, back in February, the commissioner sent out a notice to all insurers, not just State Farm, but all insurers in the state of California, to pay above the minimum 30% required for contents coverage that they're allowed to pay without an itemized list. Now, currently, the Department of Insurance and the insurance commissioner can't force insurance companies to pay more than that minimum 30%, but we know a lot of companies have gone above and beyond that 30%. And I'm going to share in the chat a list or a link to our consumer alert that sent out showing that that many of the companies have complied with paying 50, 70, even 100% of that contents coverage without an itemized list. Now, as far as State Farm goes, unfortunately, they did not comply with that request. And again, we can't force them to comply with that request. But there is a hearing next week on Tuesday, I believe it's April 8th, with the commissioner and State Farm for them to kind of open up the books as a result of them requesting an emergency rate increase a few weeks ago. I believe things like that with the contents coverage for State Farm should be addressed and covered within that hearing. So I definitely recommend everyone to attend and listen in on that public hearing. But for now, I'm going to link that notice that the commissioner sent out and the list of insurance carriers who are paying more than the minimum 30%.
Excellent. Thank you, Robin. I really appreciate that insight about that hearing upcoming. We do have another question from Gabrielle Brombach. Gabrielle is asking, I know many homeowners who are hesitant to rebuild as that we don't yet know what kind of insurance will exist and what the cost will be. And many are concerned about fire protection moving forward. What steps are being taken to build up fire protection? Because many residents are hesitant to rebuild because of that situation.
No, absolutely. Another great question. And, that's been part of the commissioner's overall sustainable insurance strategy over the past few years, where we've implemented several reforms and regulation to kind of modernize California's insurance market and provide more options for Californians. A lot of those regulations were passed in December 2024, just before the wildfires hit. And some of those are in the process of being implemented by the insurance carriers. As a matter of fact, part of those regulations requires insurance companies to write no less than 85% of the insurance policies within high-risk areas across the state of California, including the Palisades, including the Altadena areas. So more insurance options are on the way. As far as wildfire safety and wildfire mitigation goes, after the fires happen, legislators across the state have started to write and submit bills and legislation in support of wildfire mitigation, such as, for example, providing tax-free grants for directly towards wildfire mitigation, tax-free savings account for wildfire insurance premiums and home improvement. We talked about that requirement of the list earlier. Senator Ben Allen has introduced legislation to require all insurance companies to pay 100% of that contents coverage. So the state of California and its legislators have taken notice, and the California Department of Insurance does support that legislation as well. But in the meantime as well, wildfire mitigation is going to have to be a large part of the rebuilding process. And a few years ago, we introduced what are called the Safer from Wildfires regulation to help attack the root cause of some of the issues in the insurance market, which is wildfire risk. Again, I'll send a link about that into the chat. But yeah, it's definitely a problem we recognize, and it's something that we've been working on to provide more options in the insurance market in the future.
Thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate it. Okay, we do have one question regarding power for John Vanacore from LADWP. John, are you available? All right, there you are.
Here I am.
Okay, we have a couple people, including Megan Sheridan, who's asking the status of undergrounding of utilities in the Palisades. Another couple of questions that I see here in the chat. Could you please provide us with an update on the process that we're undergoing based on the mayor's executive order in regards to resilience?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jenny, for having me. I do want to cover a few things in this answer. I know it's going to be a little longer. So there's a 3-step process in what we have done so far. Right now, as of today, all but 26 standing structures have power. Now, we did a restoration, which required us to go outside the normal way we provide power down the property line, because we were not allowed to be on property line while they were doing the clearing. So you'll see a lot of poles in areas that were not where they used to be. Now we're in the process of restoring the system to the way it was, and we're going back down the property lines, and we're going to remove those temp power poles that were in the front. The poles that are going in right now are still considered temporary while we design an underground system. Undergrounding utilities takes a long period of time because there's a lot involved when you're opening up roadways and moving around other infrastructure. There's sewer, there's gas, and water. So that process is still being designed. If you've seen anything on Sunset, you would see that there's a lot of equipment there, and we're doing what we call potholing. They're actually cutting open the road and verifying utilities are where they say they are, so we can actually do that undergrounding. So yes, our intent is to still underground that system, but that's step 3, and we're in the process of step 2. So you'll see us restoring power by putting power poles where they used to be. And I know there's a lot of questions because I answer quite a few of these, as you know. So I want everybody to know we're putting them back where they were, because this process takes a long period of time. There's 80 miles of underground in order to do this system. And the last part I want to address is people are asking, why are we rebuilding back to spec. And the reason is, during that process, should we have a wind event or anything, we have to meet what's called a General Order 95, GO 95, so there is no fire hazard. So that's why we're building back to where it looks like it's permanent while we do the underground, because it may have to withstand several years while we do the underground system. So I just wanted to be as thorough as I could. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if that satisfies.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, we do have another question here from Marjan that I think gets at a similar question in a slightly different way, John, which is, how will DWP ensure that power undergrounding will be planned and implemented efficiently and as cost effectively as possible? You talked about the phases. Do you want to say anything more about the process to look at efficiency and cost effectiveness?
So what we're doing right now is we're coordinating with all the other utilities that are out there. So this way, what we're trying to make the most efficient is we open up the roadway once and we pave it once. So right now there is a weekly meeting with all other utilities in the area, gas, communications, everybody. So we only have to do this once and impact traffic the least, as well as not having to redo the resource by redoing paving. That's the most efficient way we know how to do it at this point. Because we don't want to reopen the roadways and cause more. Yeah, there's a huge cost in the digging, the excavation, and the paving. So that's how we're being the most efficient we can be. Does that answer?
Very good. Yes, it
Okay.
does. Thank you very much. Appreciate
got
it. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we have a couple more questions for Regional Administrator from FEMA, Bob Fenton. One is from Don Parcell. Don is asking a question not about debris removal, but about FEMA's coverage in general for individual assistance. Let's see, Bob is asking, will FEMA be helping people that have more than $43,600 of need? If their insurance is unable to cover that gap, how will that be addressed? And is that something that is feasibly able to be addressed through FEMA? Regional Administrator Bob Fenton, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, and I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. So we are able to help with underinsurance, and I believe it is if the insurance covers the 43,600. I'm trying to read into this. Maybe the best thing for the person to do, because I think we'll have to look through their insurance and look through their SBA loan, is to phone into our helpline or to go ahead and come into our disaster recovery center. But I'm reading their question right now, and if I have a specific answer, I'll put it in the chat. But the best thing is to phone in. Let me just say one other thing. Not only are we able to now help with underinsurance, but one of the things that I recommend everyone do if you're insured is make sure you do have an application for us. I know the application deadline just closed yesterday, and the reason why is many people's alternate living expense or loss of use funding will not be enough money to cover the time period you're displaced from your home. By the time the debris is removed, by the time you start to rebuild, most people's LOU won't last that long. What you can do is come back when you exhaust it to FEMA and get continued housing assistance for us to continue to help you to lease what or pay the lease of what you have temporarily rented until you can move back into your home. So I would just put that in there, but we are able to help with underinsurance, and I'll try to answer a specific question.
Perfect. Thank you. I have one more for you, Administrator, from Amy Reese. Amy is asking about the post-phase 2 testing of soil. I know that that is something that is not included in the Army Corps services. And I think it would be helpful for you to share a little bit about how other fire disasters and residents have dealt with this very issue, and as well some of the research in regards to the soil issues from your experience across the country.
Yeah, it's been dealt with a number of ways. The first thing I would say is typically I have never seen in a community that after a normal house fire that they test the land, and that's typically not a requirement to rebuild. In saying that, one of the other things that we've run into is because there is no background testing or baseline, it's very difficult to test because what are you testing to if you don't know what was there before? We have tried to get environmental background of areas not impacted by the fire to kind of do that. We have done testing before. In many cases, what we've found is that by taking 3 inches of soil, that we're removing that level of soil that was impacted by the fire generated debris. And by taking an additional 3 inches to that 6 inches, that's sufficient. So sometime around, I want to say after the 2017-18 fires, EPA recommended to us to take 6 inches of material. That would be sufficient to cover that area of where debris had actually leached into the soil. So that's one of our best practices that we do. The Corps of Engineers does do testing at the beginning of every debris removal, and what the testing they're doing is they're looking for asbestos, and so they're doing testing at the beginning for asbestos. One of the things they'll do is they'll remove any asbestos material. The other thing is that if after the debris removal you want to test, the county, as I understand, is doing some random sampling now. Also, there's some nonprofits and academic groups that are also doing testing that you could elicit support in. And then you can always use your insurance in that line item for debris removal to do testing if you further want to do testing and have that level of assurance. But we haven't funded testing in California since about 2020 because we've been able to move to the 6 inches of material and then allow individuals to make the decisions they want and how they could do that, and also the difficulty with having no baseline.
Thank you. Appreciate that context. Okay, one final question for tonight's webinar, at least verbally. We'll keep answering as many as we can in writing as well. This final question is for Colonel Saucer with the Army Corps of Engineers. The question is, at the current pace or the projected pace, how soon do you think the Army Corps will be done with its work of phase 2? This question is from Tracy Kramer. Colonel Saucer?
No, it's an excellent question, and we look at these numbers daily. I am very encouraged by our production rates, and they're continuing to increase. So even here in the Palisades impact area, we're operating right now in between 80 and 90% of our projected capabilities. So we still got a little bit of growth to go here. That's why I talk about April and May as being so decisive to this operation. But there's a lot of variables, of course, that goes into that. Certainly, we don't know our overall homework yet, as the extension to the deadline indicates to April 15th. And there's often some additions to the emission that we will receive that will add a little bit on the back end as well. But I talk about April and May because what that gets you is at a very conservative level across the entire fire footprint, Malibu County and the city of Los Angeles, well over 60%. I think 70% is going to be more than reasonable by the end of Memorial Day weekend. And the critical piece is we're focusing on those environmentally sensitive areas like PCH seaside properties as well, and have those completed. PCH is vital to what we're doing here. And so, maintaining a level of some restriction for utilization of PCH certainly helps us move faster. I say all of that as precursors because, of course, there's a lot of variables involved. I'm very encouraged to say that I believe by June and July, it'll be a very, very different fire impact area across all those different municipalities that I just mentioned. We will not be done in June and July, but we'll be ramping down at that point, which gets back to the question about the strain and the stress on the roads. I would ask folks to hold on for another couple months before we start to see that ramp down in the amount of trucks that are on the roads. That being said, typically in a disaster like this, you do have some complexities towards the back half of it, but they tend to be at the eaches at that point. There's going to be legally complex properties. There's also maybe some engineering complex properties that we're wrapping up as we move into the summer and progress into the fall. I'm very confident that will be done by the original projection, which is the year, so January 26th. But I think that those last 6 months will look very, very different than what you're seeing right now. They will be selected properties that we receive late in the game, selected properties that were challenging to overcome legally, and selected properties that may be challenging from an engineering perspective. But for the general public, it'll be a very, very different environment. So I would say, again, have patience. It'll look different in the summer. And I do believe we'll be largely complete by the end of the summer, but we'll have those eaches to continue to work through. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm repeating because I think this is helpful information for everybody. Approximately 60 to 70% complete by Memorial Day weekend. And by the end of the summer, very close to complete. Is that a good summation, Colonel Saucer?
Now you're backing me in, Jenny. That's really definitely done. Definitely done. I think with the variables that we have right now, restricted use of PCH, kind of a known problem set. I think that those are reasonable expectations. But I would say that there's always those complicated issues that may be on the back half of this. So to say that we'll be out of here and we'll be waving goodbye and spiking the touchdown in the end zone, maybe not the end of the summer, but I think it'll be a very, very different universe by the end of the summer. So I'm going to still hedge my bets a little bit.
Understood. And we know that you all are doing incredible work out there every single day and are so appreciative. Just want to give folks estimates. So everybody, this is not an exact science, and we will keep working very hard. But the estimates you heard tonight can be some of your data points as you plan your return to your communities and your rebuild process. And we really, really appreciate that, Colonel Saucer and the entire Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and all of our partners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. With that, we are going to move to close out this webinar. We thank everybody for joining us this evening. As a reminder, we do have a frequently asked questions document where we actually source from you all the questions that you're putting in to the chat every single webinar each Tuesday evening. And we create a frequently asked questions document and update it every single week and throughout the week so that you have the latest and greatest information for your community, for your household. We do encourage you to take a look using this QR code as well as the link in the chat to make sure that you have your questions answered. And of course, you're welcome to come onto these webinars and ask any question your heart desires or your neighborhood is seeking answers to, but we do hope that you use this tool as a resource as well. This frequently asked questions document can be found at the QR code on your screen, as well as at recovery.lacity.gov. Next slide. As a reminder, we do have these weekly community briefings every Tuesday evening. Our next Tuesday evening is April 8th at 5 p.m. We invite you to RSVP using the QR code on your screen or at the link in the chat as well. Next slide. And as a reminder, we do have these webinars shortly after this session. We'll go ahead and post it, as well as all the other webinar sessions that you can listen to at your leisure to hear about all things from debris removal to FEMA to SBA resources to the rebuild process from building and safety and more. We hope that you do check them out and utilize them. They are labeled by each topic. And we thank you, Meryl Kruger, who said, thank you so much for posting these online shortly after the meeting. I think that's a nudge for us to do it as soon as possible after the meeting. So we'll do our best, Meryl. And Meryl is also saying that they can't always focus during the whole meeting, and referencing back is so very helpful. We are so glad to hear that, Meryl, and we appreciate the positive feedback. Thank you. Thank you. With that being said, we want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Councilmember Park, you're welcome to share any final greetings that you would like. All right, just a friendly wave. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.